You know, it's like, and I want to just say this: if a podcaster is reviewing a game, did they play the game first? That's my first thing. If they said, "Oh, I looked at all these pictures of the game, but I haven't played it," I really don't take much consideration into a podcaster's critique on that. They played the game.
They disguise that as a first impression.
Oh yes, yes.
My first impression.
Okay, first of all, it's not a matter of disguising. It's just a matter of just being honest. I mean, typically when these games get revealed, it's pretty obvious that it's not out into the public yet for everyone to play and give feedback on due to their gameplay experiencing of it. No, that's why a lot of the times when new games are revealed, everyone's talking about it on Pinside and giving their thoughts and opinions. This is just another outlet for that, being YouTube. We give our first impressions on how we feel. And my videos specify whether or not I have actually played the game. And a lot of the times, like even just recently with Led Zeppelin, I specified that all my comments are strictly going by the stream alone, and that my opinions could obviously change after I play it. So it's not a matter of disguising, it's just being honest with the viewers. Like, whether you like it or not, David Fix, whenever a game is revealed and shown to the world, everyone, including us that comment on this material, have their opinions. And a lot of times, people just want to hear other people's thoughts on the game and what they think about it because they've already got in their head how they feel about it. And a lot of the times, when us podcasters or YouTubers discuss this content, people are either going to agree or completely disagree. It happens. To each their own. And this may be a hard truth for a lot of you out there. The thing is, most of you out there have already watched content about a new game and have your thoughts and feelings about it. And you've already made up your mind how you feel. So typically when you watch like my videos or anybody else's podcast or videos, you're technically just looking for affirmation about how you feel. That's what it is. Us as people love for others to agree with how we feel. That is how it is. That is how my subscriber base has grown the way it has, because I'm not the only one that thinks this way, guys. There's a reason why when I started listening to Kaneda that I kept listening, because his mindset thinks a lot how I think. That's just the way it is. Not many people listen or watch somebody that is completely off course of how they think or feel. Although I greatly encourage those of you out there to watch content that doesn't technically agree with how you feel. It's not good to be in an echo chamber.
That's like me seeing a young podcaster, and Chris and I, we had this discussion earlier. Just think about this, a podcaster who maybe been podcasting and collecting for the last 5 years. I mean, he wasn't there through the 2000s. He wasn't there in the 99s when Williams closed down. He wasn't there when we used to buy pinball machines for $200 or $500. I mean, I have a $500 Getaway and a $600 Terminator 2 that looks like they brand new. Okay, I bought a Indiana Jones from the Williams version for $1,000. The first two games that my wife and I ever bought was a Pinbot for $800 and a Bride of Pinbot for $1,200. So I mean, you look at that, you're like, wow.
So first off, congratulations for purchasing your pinball machines at such a low price back in the day, but you honestly took a big gamble at the time because you bought these machines for cheap. Why were they so cheap? Because at that time, pinball was on the major decline and possibly going to be non-existent. So therefore, you would have purchased all these games for the low price of what? To have a bunch of machines in your house that don't work anymore because you got lucky and pinball got better. Manufacturers kept pumping games out. Companies like Marco started making parts to keep these games alive. If it wasn't for the rise of pinball again, then technically you took a risk. So whether or not you bought games at a low price, that means jack shit.
You know, and then they come online and they're young, they have their attitude, and they're going to tell the world what they think. But sometimes you got to put the time in the trenches, boys, and do your research and get your facts right.
Yeah.
And the sad thing, in the old days, what we didn't go on podcasts. We would just reply back to the email saying, I haven't played it yet. It looks neat. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, back in the old days, we also didn't have like YouTube and really good internet and stuff like that. It's a horrible argument to state. It's like people that argue that they only want to put incandescents in their games because that's the way they were designed to be. I'm like, it's not a matter about whether they were designed that way. It's a matter of just what the availability of materials were at that time. I'm pretty sure if they could have gotten LEDs into their games back in the day at a good price, then they would have done it. So it's the same ordeal now with everyone having the ability to have a platform and a voice.
But to go on and give your first impressions, then it's
because you got to be first. Got to be first. Never play.
Yeah. Oh, it's about like having a podcast. You're sitting there watching, I don't know, a really good, super awesome pinball podcast, eating popcorn while just commenting on what's going on in the screen. So
you just got burned.
And the whole "you just got burned" soundbite, I guess I don't understand that, because it's not a burn, because essentially you're talking about yourself as there as well when it comes to podcasters or YouTubers commenting on what they see. That's what we do. That is over 90% of what our content is about. Reacting and giving our feedback on what we see and hear or read or whatever in this hobby. That's what it is. So I don't get the whole "you just got burned" thing. I'm like, well, that's okay. All right. So that was an excerpt from the Super Awesome Pinball Show. If you want to hear the whole interview and everything, by all means, I'll put a link in the description down below so you may listen to the entire podcast. That is only one portion of it that I felt I really needed to comment on. So, but the other news that needs to be talked about is the fact that Dennis Nordman is now working as a senior designer for American Pinball. And this is actually really good news for the pinball industry in general, because Dennis has made a lot of games. Let me put these on here real quick. These are just, some of the games that Dennis Nordman has been a designer for. I want to say he's got a total of like 24 on his record for creating, because he's designed other games that have never seen the light of day as of yet, because as some of you may know, Dennis has kind of hopped around a bit from, doing stuff with Highway Pinball. He was at Stern whenever he did his Elvira's House of Horrors, and he started it, but it was finished by somebody else. And he even comments on the podcast about the things that were changed a little bit in that game. Then he went on to Deep Root, then the Chicago Gaming Company, and now he's at American Pinball. And he comments and explains why he was hopping around the way he does. And like I said, I encourage those of you to listen to the podcast to get all that information. I will give you in a nutshell, and that's basically that Dennis wants to make games and get them out to people. He is a workhorse when it comes to designing games and getting them out into the world for people to enjoy. And due to where he's been in the past, there's been something that's always gone wrong, or is just something that keeps him from being able to get his games out. So with him jumping on into American Pinball, as he states in the podcast, he's able to do a design from like cradle to the grave, which is basically ready to go in like a 2-month period. So he loves games that are packed. He specifies that he loves games where he can just throw as much stuff as he possibly can into it. So that's another plus with him being at American Pinball, is that hopefully we'll get games, 1, more often, 2, that have a lot of stuff in it. And from the information I gathered on the podcast, it looks like we should be seeing American Pinball's next game, I think they said 6 months from now. So middle of this year, we should see American Pinball's next game. And something else I noted from the podcast is that David Fix, although he's said some other things in there that I'm like, okay, but one thing that I do have to give him a compliment on is that he said that if they get a licensed game, they want everything. They want all the assets. They don't want just little bits here and there. So kudos to you, and I hope that remains true in your upcoming titles. As of right now, I think that's all this video needs to have in it, is basically just discussing the news with Dennis Nordman and promote for you to listen to the newest podcast from Super Awesome Pinball Show, where Dennis Nordman goes over much more details. I'll put, like I said, a link in the description for your listening pleasure. Until next time, guys, peace out.